Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. Seventh order? Is it the seventh order? Sixth? Huh? Huh? Sixth, okay. Sixth, Secretary.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration, as well as planning, monitoring, and evaluation on Department of Public Service and Administration, Public Service Commission, National School of Government, and Center for Public Service Innovation.
Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
Okay, the motion is that the report be adopted. Any objections? Go ahead.
Deputy Speaker, the Minister for Public Service and Administration is responsible for establishing norms and standards relating to, amongst others, the functions of the public service, integrity, ethics, conduct and anti-corruption, transformation, reform, innovation and other matters to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the public service and its service delivery to the public, labour relations, conditions of service and other employment practices for employees. Under the strategic outcome goals, the department highlighted the following priorities to the Portfolio Committee: a public service that's a career of choice, efficient and effective management and operations systems, increased responsiveness of public service accountability to citizens, improved mechanisms to promote ethical behaviour in the public. Now we saw on the budget that this department underspent in the amount of 16.6 million. And in the 2016-17 financial year, it only achieved 89% of its planned targets, mainly due to the funded vacant positions, of which the department reported an average 12% throughout the year per month. We also see on the spending that Service Commission and the Centre for Innovation spend very well, but we are concerned that the National School of Government is not funded very well and cannot fulfill its mandate. And under the Auditor General, we have to see the red lights flickering as we found a lot of material misstatements under the performance of labour relations, human resource, government's chief information officer, service delivery support, and governance of public. Concerned about the public service wage negotiations that just started, and we hope that the best interest of government and its fiscus will take place. And we are still concerned that the Minister and others do not set the example as prescribed in the Ministerial Handbook when appointing staff. Thank you.
Honourable Mentor.
Enkosi Deputy Speaker. Ngelishwa asihambisani ke nale report. The Minister of Public Service and Administration, after destroying the Department of Communications and SABC, has now started to do the same at the Department of Public Service and Administration. Oko wafika, into ayenzayo ubiza imbizo. Xa uDG wakhe enga-approve imali yokuya kwezimbizo ezingaziwayo uba zezokwenza ntoni, akavumelani naye, uyamsuspenda, uthatha uCFO wakhe obecorrupta naye imali yestate ngapha eCommunications umzise DPSA azokwenza ntoni, akayazi into azoyenza. Ugxotha uCFO, ugxotha uDG we-DPSA. Sixelelwa ukubana ngabe uDG we-DPSA uzicelele ukuhamba, akazicelelanga uhamba, but xa uphansi koxinzelelo uyanyanzeleka uzicelela uba mawuphume. Into ibifanele ibiyenziwa ke i-National School of Government is to empower level 1 to level 12 ku-Department of Public Service. Zonke ezi departments zidila nabantu, especially entry level 1 to 5 abangenazo izikills eziproper. Umsebenzi wabo kukwenza sure ukubana ngaba bayayazi. Umsebenzi wabo kukwenza sure ukuba the Batupili principles ziyaziwa ngabantu baka level 1 to level 5 because ngabona benza ngcono kune officials ezinizizisayo yonke lemihla nizibhatala imali ezinkulu. And okwesibini ezambizo ndimncedise ke uminister yena mntu ufuna ubiza imbizo makakhadile ne-agreements ze-salaries zabasebenzi adile ne-agreements ze-housing yabasebenzi i-housing ebanikwa i-900 out of the 1.2 etsalwayo kubo abaka-allocatelwa indlela entsha yokwenza uba bakwazi uboleka imali ebhankini bathenge izindlu. So xa ifuna imbizo makathethe nabasebenzi bangafuni imbizo zotya imali.
Honorable Nqabe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As a developmental state, South Africa needs an efficient, effective, and development-oriented public service. And it is the task of this department to develop, implement, and coordinate interventions which will achieve these objectives. The department received an allocation of 779.8 million for the year of 2016 to 2017, which represents a substantial reduction of 941.5 million of the previous year financial allocation. After transfers, the department an available budget of 452.5 million for operations, of which 436.6 million or 96.5% of the total budget was spent. Whilst the ratio of underspending to performance is exceptionally favorable, we believe that there is a room for improvement to curb underspending. The NFP notes that despite budgetary constraints and some underspending, the department had achieved a very commendable 89% of its planned target. In addition, the NFP concurs with the committee in commending the department, the Public Service Commission, and its entities for receiving a clean audit for 2016-2017 financial year. The report before us contains several observations and recommendations which the NFP supports. One of the areas, though, of major concern is the vacancy rate of close to 12%, despite funding being available. We also note the concern of the committee about instability of senior management, and more particularly the Director Generals and heads of department in the public sector. Just these past 2 days, we witnessed the sudden departure of Chief Financial Officer of SARS, as well as the CEO of Office of the Public Protector. The NFP calls upon the department to give urgent attention to this issue of instability in senior management. We support this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Drachen will speak from her chair.
Deputy Speaker, in 2014, in our election manifesto, we committed to inter alia forging a disciplined, public-centered and professional public service and promoting education and training of public servants. As the ANC, we have the responsibility of building a skilled and professional public service to support, amongst other responsibilities, a capable and developmental state in order to achieve the objectives of the national democratic revolution. A developmental and capable state is a prerequisite for addressing South Africa's developmental challenges, as pointed out in the NDP. Capable in that it has the capacity to formulate and implement policies that serve the national interest, developmental, in that those policies focus on overcoming the root causes of poverty and inequality and building the state's capacity to fulfill its role. We therefore call on the department and its entities to implement the recommendations of the report and continue to coordinate interventions aimed at achieving an efficient, effective, and developmental-orientated public service that will improve service delivery. As the ANC, our priorities are to accelerate growth, create decent work, and promote investment in a competitive economy, and by an administration that is people-centered and people-driven. The ANC supports this report. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Note the objection of the economic freedom fighters.
We will. Thank you. The Secretary will read the seventh order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendations report of Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs.
Chief Whip,
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
the motion is that the report be adopted. Any objections? Declarations? Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The FF rejects this budgetary review and recommendation reports of Portfolio Committee of Home Affairs. This department is one of those at the forefront of the capture of the state by Ubabaga Tutuzani and his handlers. They facilitated the naturalization of the Gupta leeches through the intervention of Mr. Malusi Gigaba. The most brazen of their attempt at capture was their initiation and eventually passing by this House of the Border Management Authority Bill, which will take from SARS levy collection responsibility at our borders. Before the bill has been passed by the NSOP, the department has made advanced plan to take over this lucrative source of funds from the Zuma, Zuma, and Gupta criminal network. They have already developed their Border Management Authority roadmap and have developed implementation plans at 6 ports of entry. If they were as efficient as solving the immigration corruption as they are when they want to loot, our country will be far by now. The function of this department has been further crippled by the brazen exploitation of their workforce. They force workers to work on Saturday, and they refuse to pay them. And our people are still subjected to a long queues, and they are directed by security guards instead of front desk personnel. So we are saying, Deputy Speaker, we can't support this budget at this time until the state capture is brought back and until the Committee of Home Affairs is prepared to hold an inquiry before the committee, because they are busy protecting the Guptas. They don't want to call Malusi Gigaba before the committee. They don't want to call the Guptas. They just want to frustrate us. So we, therefore, as the FF, we can't support this.
Point of order,
Thank
Deputy
you.
Speaker.
Yes, what's your point
Honorable
of order?
member is calling the minister by name. Let her call him.
She knows
Honorable member.
the norm. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Speaker. This one must go and get
No.
clear
Honorable
guidance
member.
on how to read rules properly.
Honorable member, go back and say it.
Ngithi,
Say, no, you have to refer to the minister.
Which minister?
No
The Gupta
minister.
puppet? Oh, Mr. Malusi Gigaba, the Gupta puppet.
Honorable member, you will withdraw that.
I withdraw the truth.
Honorable member, withdraw unconditionally.
Ukuthini, uthi Gupta puppet?
Withdraw unconditionally, honorable member.
Umalusi Gigaba is not a Gupta puppet.
Honorable member.
Okay, I withdraw, but who has naye ukuthi
Honorable
Gupta
member.
puppet? I withdraw.
Honorable member, I think we should refer your case to the people who should deal with it better than me. I think you are contemptuous
Speaker.
of the House.
Order, Speaker.
What are you raising on?
The member has withdrawn. What else? do you
Honorable
want now?
member, take your seat.
The
You have no
member has
basis.
withdrawn.
Honorable member, you have no basis to challenge a ruling
But the
made
member
made
has
in the House.
withdrawn.
The ruling has been made and you have no business
The
to
member
challenge
has
it in the
withdrawn.
House. Take your seat. Go ahead, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Home Affairs is one of the most important portfolio that fall under the security cluster, and I was deeply sad to hear about the suspension of the Director General of this department. However, take my hat off to Mr. Aplain for his backbone to fight for what is right against those who practice corruption for their own gain. I want to warn those who keep on covering up for those rotten apples who mess up and still get promoted. The rope is getting shorter and comes as no surprise if you are led by a leader who is corrupt, you will become the same. As the saying goes, birds of feathers. The Department of Home Affairs suffers a shortage of finances in order to do the work of the department more efficiently. We see shortages of staff, especially in the offices. You'll find out there's 10 or 15 counters, but you get only 3 people that are servicing the communities, especially the immigration officers and inspectorate to secure our border. The Department of Home Affairs has implemented a modernization program where the department is working towards a paperless environment. The application for certain documents such as smart ID and passports can already be done online. The process of application depends largely on reliable and uninterrupted network infrastructure. This is not the case, as downtimes of the system are very high, and this infrastructure, it frustrates the clients. The service of the Department of Home Affairs cannot be sourced anywhere else but relies solely on the State Information Technology Agency. That means SITA. For the network, SITA has appeared before the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs in 2016 and 17.
Honorable Member, your time has
for the
expired.
same problem, and yet the problem still persists. Thank you.
Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Honourable Figland, who just left the podium, spoken about the lack of staff. But sometimes it's not the lack of staff, but the fact that the staff in these offices are not committed. A classic case that was put to me, Honourable Deputy Speaker, was of members of the public going into an office in Durban, and they noticed that staff were not attending to the clients there, but they were busy eating chicken behind the screen. And they could see them. And when they raised the issue with them, a few days later when this particular client went back to Home Affairs, what did those staff do? They put a newspaper on the glass so that you couldn't see them still eating chicken behind. So that's the kind of incompetency that takes place in some of these Home Affairs offices. And you find that the Batupele principle that we all subscribe to is not being put into practice in many of them. I do not serve on this committee, Honourable Deputy Speaker, but I note that the committee has made 31 recommendations, which is quite a large number. But what is of concern is that there are 3 recommendations outstanding from last year which haven't been attended to, and I trust that the department will attend to those recommendations and findings made by the Auditor General. With regard to a recommendation made with regard to time frame for processing permanent residence permits, I think all of us as members of this House get calls from people about the long delays in processing these residence permits. Whether it's a backlog or whether they are carefully scrutinizing these applications is something that we've got to look into. I just trust that in deploying immigration officials in and around the border areas, and I note that the department introduced a new program today, that the Zimbabwe issue gets resolved as quickly as possible. They can find themselves in their own country. Otherwise, we're going to have an influx of more asylum seekers in our country, which will place additional burden on the Department of Home Affairs. I commend the committee for the kind of recommendations I've made and support this.
Honourable
Thank you.
Kubisa.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Few things that we have always been harping on as the NFP. For the attention of the Honourable Minister, the corruption in regional offices, the selling of the documentation is a major problem and it must be dealt with. And also the issue of the Border Management Authority. We have been saying that our borders are very porous and that needs to be attended to because most of these people come with drugs and stealing of cars, and it has been happening especially around Mango's area. So such matters have to be attended to. And of course, another issue of the long queues at the regional offices. These are the matters that the NFP has been speaking about all the time. And because we find that senior citizens have to stand there for a long time, I wish that these matters be attended to as well. And we find also that there are a lot of people within the country, immigrants, that are not registered. in due consideration of the scarce skills that we need. But to have people that are not registered within the country and even their business are not registered, it's not that one is xenophobic or Afrophobic, but some of these people who are in the country, you know, are associated with drug trafficking and human trafficking. And we'll not mince our words when we speak about these things, because these are matters of concern. Now, we understand, of course, that the department has got a mandate to make sure that the identity and status of every citizen and foreigner on South African soil is accurately recorded, stored, and safeguarded. At the same time, the department must regulate migration in such a way that the security needs of our country are met, while simultaneously promoting and fulfilling the international obligations with regard to people who are displaced and those seeking asylum.
Honorable Member,
And
your time
having
has
mentioned this
expired.
issue, Chairperson, which I think are important, the NFP supports the report. Thank you.
Honorable Gumete.
Honorable Deputy Speaker and honorable members of the House, good afternoon. The role of the department is to efficiently determine and safeguard the identity and status of citizenship, as well as regulate immigration to ensure security, promote development, and fulfill South Africa's international obligations. The department satisfied the Auditor General that the funds it received were used according to what was passed by Parliament, and we commend the department for a clean audit. The department has exceeded a number of its media targets for machine-readable passports and immigration-related targets for permanent resident visas. However, the committee has noted that the 100 million rands that has been inadvertently declared as unspent funds was for a multi-year project regarding information and modernization systems, which still was in progress. It therefore requests that that decision be reviewed. We therefore thank the Department of Police for contributing. We further thank the Department of Police for contributing 264 million rands for much needed upgrade to the biometric information system as part of its mandate to make South Africa safe and its citizens feel safe. The committee further recommends that the department ensure it sticks to timeframes in processing the residence permits. Pursue
Honorable Member, I'm afraid your time has expired.
The ANC supports this report. Thank you.
Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to.
Please record the objection of EFF, Deputy Speaker.
I will. Honorable Member, before...
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the Democratic Alliance.
We will do that. Honorable members, before we move to the next order, which is Order 8, I want to, after making two rulings this afternoon on Rule 85, and Rule 85 speaks about the reflections upon members, the President and ministers or deputy ministers who are not members of the Assembly. It applies across them. No member may impute improper motives to any other member or cast personal reflections upon a member's integrity or dignity or verbally accuse a member in any other way. A member who wishes to bring any improper or unethical conduct on the part of another member to the attention of the House may do so only by way of a separate substantive motion comprising a clearly formulated and properly substantiated charge that, in the opinion of the Speaker, prima facie warrants consideration by the House. Sub-rules 1 and 2 apply also to reflections upon the President, ministers and deputy ministers who are not members of the House. I read this rule to emphasize that there are no shortcuts. From the podium, from the floor, this rule must be enforced all the time in the interest of all members and the reputation of the House itself for enforcing its rules. I request members to adhere to it all the time. And as I said earlier on, we will have to attend to it differently. Read the 8th order, sir.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs.
Deputy Speaker, sorry, can we get clarity? Was that a clarification or a ruling?
I made rulings before, and I read a rule based on which those rulings were. And I said, this must be adhered to all the time, every time. This is what I said.
It was a clarification of an existing rule, not a ruling, because there's a huge backlog that you have of outstanding rulings.
No. It's not about those rulings. Those rulings will be made in the House. I was just reading a rule that I see being violated frequently in the House here, and in a manner that is problematic. And I thought I must deliberately read it again so that you understand it. And by the way, the rules say we may make the rulings on the day or subsequently. That is also a rule. Why not? Why
Deputy
not?
Speaker.
We will do it. We will
Deputy
do it.
Speaker.
Yes.
Just a clarity, why you just choose to read as a rule? That I'm confused.
Because you violated them even after I have requested you not to do so, and you did it repeatedly.
So
and I
this
wish
rule-
you to sit down.
So you're reading this rule to me?
Honorable member, take your seat.
Oh, okay.
Take your seat. Honorable members.
Sorry kancane bengifuna ukuzwa ukuthi ithini ruling
No.
ngominister abanga-attend la
Honorable
eParliament.
member, kawuhlale phansi, awukekho othe ukhulume okokuqala nje. The Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Any declarations? Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, this year the Department of Cooperative Governance regressed from an unqualified audit to a qualified audit. Now, the primary concern of the Auditor General was, for the second year running, the controls and administration of the Community Work Programme. A further concern relates to the fact that the department, and consequently the municipalities, underspent by some 3.18 billion rand due to the slow take-up of the Municipal Systems Improvement Grant and the withholding of equitable share funds. The AG also expressed concern over the quality of the financial statements and the performance reports submitted by the department. Procurement processes and creditors' control remain a challenge. In contrast, the Department of Traditional Affairs received a clean audit and must be commended on their achievement. Of the entities, the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency remains a challenge, as its annual report was submitted late and could not be considered in time for the BRRR process. SELGA again received a clean audit, although concern must be raised about the entity's personnel costs, which amount to some 56% of its total expenditure. SELGA is also claiming credit for achieving significant reforms in regard to municipal relations with ESCOM, although the reality is that these are a drop in the ocean when one considers the debt burden faced by municipalities. The Commission for the Promotion and Protection of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Rights also received a clean audit, while the Municipal Demarcation Board received a qualified audit based on its failure to comply with certain legislative requirements regarding supply chain management and the weak definition of its performance indicators. The committee noted the negative financial impact of amalgamations and recommended faster intervention in dysfunctional municipalities. We further suggested that the MDB must meaningfully consider the views of stakeholders with regard to municipal boundary determinations, especially those views of National Treasury and the Finance and Fiscal Commission. We remain concerned that it is nearly impossible to hold the Minister to account, as he never attends Portfolio Committee meetings, and as an example, just today he skipped a meeting that had been rescheduled twice. Deputy Speaker, the Democratic Alliance supports this report.
Honorable Khawla.
The Department of COCTA is a very important department, and in such time when the National Assembly is adopting such an important report in line with money bill processes, we should be debating the merits of the recommendations. But we simply cannot when the minister of this department is a captured Gupta stooge who's being used to loot taxpayers' money. And the
Point of order.
refuses to act.
Honorable member.
We now know for a fact.
Honorable Kaula, take your seat. Yes,
I'm
honorable member.
rising on Rule 84, unparliamentary language. The member referred to the Minister of COCTA in the way he referred to him.
Withdraw that, honorable member.
I draw, Chair. We now know for a fact that the advisor of Mr.
Honorable Kaula, please withdraw.
I withdrew, Chair.
I want to hear you, honorable member. I don't hear you.
But I did, Chair, but Chair, you're patronizing me. I've withdrawn.
Deputy Speaker, stop harassing our member. He
Take
did.
your seat. Take your seat, honorable
Stop harassing
member.
our member on the podium.
Honorable member, take your seat. Just take your seat. Go ahead, honorable member.
We now know for a fact that the advisor of Mr. Van Rooyen arrived at the National Treasurer on the 9th of December 2015 with Mr. Mohamed Bobat, who's now his special advisor, had a 12-point plan to loot state resources. We now know for a fact that the same Mr. Bobat arranged a meeting in Dubai between his two employers, the minister and Mr. Salim, the owner of Trillion, regiments and other Gupta-linked companies to concoct a plan to loot state resources. When the EFF asked if the minister has ever met any of the Gupta brothers or associates, the minister lied and said he has never done that. We now know for a fact from what the former Trillion Management Consulting
Point of
CEO,
order, Chair.
Ms. Bianca.
Honorable member, yes.
I'm
take your
rising
seat,
on Rule 84. The member has used unparliamentary language that a member of this House has lied.
Honorable member, you know that. You can't say that unless you do so by way of a substantive motion.
He denied having met with the Guptas,
Honorable
and therefore
member,
he did not speak the
you
truth.
used unparliamentary language. Please withdraw it. And I've just read you the rules.
I withdraw the word lie, but he misled Parliament and said he never met with
Honorable
the Guptas.
member, don't do that unconditionally. It's inappropriate.
Okay, I withdraw, Chair. The minister misled Parliament and said he has never met the Guptas. We also know for a fact from the former Trillion Management Consulting CEO, Ms. Bianca Godson, told the ESCOM inquiry that Mr. Van Rooyen, as we speak, is busy implementing the Gupta concocted plan. We know for a fact.
Speaker,
yes.
An honorable member is referring to the Minister Van Rooyen. You must refer to him as Honorable Minister.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, honorable member. Go ahead, honorable member.
The minister, the back to basic plan, which is supposed to be a leadership plan document, which is being implemented by COCTA and SALGA to municipalities. We now know that document was sponsored by an employee of COCTA who was with you to Trillion, so that it is viewed as a document that was developed by Trillion, yet it was developed by your own department just to loot
Honorable
the
member,
resources.
your time
now,
has
if you are not
expired.
watching, you must
Honorable
watch what
member,
is happening
your
in
time has
Zimbabwe.
expired.
It's going to happen. All those corrupt ministers together with the president are
Honorable
going to
member.
be seized by our soldiers. They are just waiting for our command. They are coming for you. House arrest.
Honorable member.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Tasked with the improvement of cooperative governments and traditional affairs across the three spheres of government, it remains imperative that under expenditure as well as irregular expenditure in this department is addressed. Whilst the unqualified audit is commendable, there remains great room for improvement, which the department could begin to address by first reducing its vacancy rate, which currently sits at 9.5%. The repeat occurrence of problems relating to the management and administration of the Community Work Program and Infrastructure Support Agent is worrisome, and these must be solved in the ensuing year.
Honorable Chairperson, our country has been unfortunate in respect of certain natural disasters in the last year. Of particular mention are the fires in the Naisna as well as the flash flooding in the provinces of KZN and Gauteng. Bureaucracy is emerging as a key impediment again and again to effective disaster response in these instances. Such processes must be streamlined and the bureaucratic hindrances identified and removed. And lastly, our municipalities must ensure that they enforce competency standards of managers and that only people with requisite skills, expertise, and qualifications are appointed. The IFP supports the report. Thank you.
NFP.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. We just want to mention a few things which are a cause for concern. And the issue of electricity, and we understand that there's been a meeting between SALCA, Treasury, the department, and trying to resolve the debate. And we hope that this will be resolved sooner, because municipalities are owing billions to ESCOM. But at the same time, we understand okay, into ebalulekile kubantu bakithi, ikakhulu ukubhekelela labo bantu abahlwempu ukuthi bekwazi ukuthola ugesi. Sicabanga ukuthi lezi zinto zoshesha ke zinakekelwe. And another thing, Chairperson, we have been speaking about is that MISA must do its work, because most municipalities are lacking in competencies and skills. And of course, we understand that some of the municipalities employ municipal managers and directors that are not competent, yet there are criteria that are set as to who should be appointed. For example, if it is said to be a director for community services, you need a degree and also need a certificate in public finance management, etc. Those competencies must be met. Cannot be that a person who doesn't qualify will occupy the position. So we've seen a lot of shenanigans with regard to appointment, which are the issues for concern. And of course, the department must take into cognizance the issue of the 30-day payment to service providers, because there are those who are starting their business and would like to get their money as soon as possible in order for their business to be enhanced. And also the use of consultants is an issue that must be dealt with. We also note that the department has achieved 20 out of 22 of its targets.
Your time is
but
up.
These are the matters that we want to bring to the fore as the NFP, and we support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Yes. Honorable members, fellow citizens, House Chairperson, the ANC supports this report. The purpose of the report is to make recommendations and urge the Minister of Finance to amend the budget in a way that takes into account specific realities and challenges that the department has to deal with. This is, of course, has to be done within the following context: the examination of the overall economic situation, looking at the available resources, understanding that by definition, resources are limited, but that the needs are indeed very extensive. The responsibility of and by all public representatives to ensure effective and efficient use of all resources made available. Our primary task as public representatives is to improve the quality of life of all our people, all the citizens. House Chairperson, the financial and service delivery performance is spelled out on page 6 of the report. The achievements are outlined in page 7, and the audit findings are found on page 8 of this report. Some of the key reported challenges include the human resource capacity of 90.5% and a vacancy rate of 9.5% in the department. This requires a correction, and we trust that the department will address this matter as soon as possible. In fact, this is urgent. Let me point out that we remain committed in our oversight responsibility to pursue the objectives of local government as spelled out in Section 1521 of the Constitution and elaborated in Section 73 of the Municipal Systems Act.
Order, Honorable Member, your time is up.
ANC support the report.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
EFF objects.
Objection of the EFF is noted. The report is therefore agreed. I am very sorry, I can see today you are not so smiling. Is it because we have just lost the bid? We will win it next time. We'll win it next time, don't worry. You can just prepare to go to France for the next Rugby World Cup. I'll now ask the Secretary to read the 9th order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Telecommunications and Postal Services.
I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I move that the report be adopted.
I have noted that there are declarations that parties would like to make. I now recognize the DA.
This BRRR report is a fair reflection of the activities of the department during the past year, churning out strategies that will be irrelevant if the ICT infrastructure on which they depend cannot be built, drafting legislation, much of it unnecessary, that is likely to be tied up in the courts as soon as it is promulgated. Just today, we hear that South Africa has dropped in the global IT rankings to number 92 from number 98, from 88 last year. While the department has been going about its business as usual, the dynamic ITC sector, which contributed more to GDP in 2014 than the agricultural industry, has been fearfully treading water. It is waiting for spectrum so it can innovate and operate in a dynamic and demanding socio-economic world. It's waiting for new laws that will determine whether to increase its investment in our nation or seek friendlier pastures elsewhere. The energy and innovative potential of the IT sector, alas, is chained down by ANC policy that peddles destruction under the guise of disruption. It has a minister who boasts about spectrum and network agreements with the mobile operators, but these are vaporware, as we'll soon see. The much-trumpeted fourth industrial revolution cannot happen as long as the ANC keeps our ICT sector in chains. The minister has failed to innovate solutions for the South African Post Office's survival. He animated himself to show support for Treasury's campaign to secure SASSA grant payments, but this is the flimsiest of lifelines. It will not address SAPO's structural handicaps. Unless ANC changes policy to allow SAPO to financially leverage its vast property portfolio, or to buy into partnerships to play a key role in the lucrative e-commerce logistics market, the Post Office is doomed to penury. Under the political dullness of the ANC, this department fails to deliver to the ICT sector what it desperately needs to deliver prosperity and well-being to all South Africans.
EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. As we enter the fourth industrial revolution, the purpose and mandate of this department will continue to grow in importance. CETA, Broadband Infraco, Centec and South Africa Connect all play an important role in achieving this. Yet Broadband Infraco achieved only 5 out of its 18 targets, including a failure to spend a certain percentage on black-owned entities. Centec has for years discussed buying a satellite so that South Africa broadcasting is not dependent on other countries and costs do not rise due to the volatility of the rand in relation to other currencies. It is therefore worrying that the satellite program was not mentioned in the presentation by Centec to the committee. If we want to benefit as a country and people from the fourth industrial revolution, we need to have our own capacity and also ensure that Black South Africans drive the country's involvement. The department is failing to do this. It is now also clear that SAPO, which falls under this department, will be taking over the distribution of social grants for SARS. SAPO must be equipped so that it can be an example of what expanded state capacity in service delivery. But the report does not speak to this properly. For these reasons, we reject this report.
IFP.
Ngiyathokoza Majoga. The IFP aligns itself with the recommendations as contained in this BRRR. We remain concerned that nothing is being done to decisively drive down the cost to communicate, which remains far too high. Not only does it exclude young people from opportunities, but it hampers much needed economic growth. Furthermore, there is an urgent need to ensure that the department improves and strengthens its leadership role and implements changes in its internal controls to ensure better audit outcomes of entities reporting to it. It must also ensure its improved supply chain management systems are implemented in line with national treasury regulations and the Public Finance Management Act. But of grave concern was the fact that the South African Post Office received a qualified audit opinion with findings and achieved only out of 18 KPIs, which was an audit achievement of only 27.8%. An almost 1 billion rand loss incurred by the South African Post Office cannot be condoned. SAPO must implement its strategies to allow it to use its monopoly, which should be enforced by Icasa, to be self-sufficient and to turn the business around. Honorable Chairperson, the issue of the South African Post Office taking over the payments of grants must not be seen as a silver bullet which is going to solve all the problems of the South African Post Office. In fact, it must be seen as a parallel process and must not be convoluted with a turnaround strategy which is required for the Post Office. And of course, there's the perception out there that we favor the Post Office over anybody else. It's not a matter of favoring the Post Office, but about building the state's capacity and the state's capabilities to roll out these grants, because we know that it will cost us more to outsource. The Post Office will be expected to make sure that it fully complies with the requirements of rolling out.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Your time is out. Siyathokoza nathi mhlonishwa. Ngikuphuthumile impela imzuzu yakhe isithe ukweqa kancane ilungu elihloniphekile lika Khongolose.
Kyalobuwa mdula situlo lelekgotla le hlomphehileng. This is a budgetary report of telecommunications and postal services. One of the policy goals of the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services is to make telecommunication services accessible and available to the widest number of people at affordable prices. It is upon us, public representatives, to make it happen. Chairperson, in her engagement and deliberations with the department, there was a commitment to implement optimally the objective of the white paper, that is, bridging the digital divide in order to build a knowledge economy in which all citizens could participate on an equal basis, thus narrowing the gap of inequalities and, of course, the legacy of the past. In the interest of time, Chairperson, let me spend more time on concerns raised by the committee, the observations and recommendations. That is, filling of vacancies, improving on consequence management, tracking fruitless, irregular, and wasteful expenditure. Most of the time, Chairperson, these allegations occur as a result of poor planning or just negligence. Part of poor planning is to be too ambitious and plan above budget and the required capacity. I'll just quote a few observations, as there are many, as you can see from the report. The committee expressed disappointment in the performance of the department and some of its entities, not all of them, but some. The committee expressed concern in respect of the irregular expenditure by the department, which indicated that an employee was paid before his employment was approved. The committee noted with concern that improper processes were followed in respect of a tender for cleaning and security services. And coming to recommendations, the committee recommends that the Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services should ensure that the department improves the strength and strengthens its leadership role and implements changes in its
I'm
internal
sorry,
controls.
Honorable Member, your time is up.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the report?
Chair, would you please note the objection of the DA? Thank you.
The objections of the DA is noted.
Objection of EFF.
Objection of the EFF is noted. Take a seat, Honorable Mkalipi. Don't listen to the other. I'm protecting you indeed.
Chair,
Take a
please
seat.
protect me from Ututu because yesterday I called her outside to go and finish our story. She ran away.
Order. Honorable members.
House Chair. House Chair,
Order.
rule 85.
Order. Honorable member, can you take
No,
your seat?
she's calling me by name.
Order. Honorable member, can you take your seat? The report has been adopted. Order. Honorable members, you have got ample time during lunch to persuade one another about what you would want to do out of this house. Can I now ask the secretary to read the 10th order?
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Energy.
I now recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
I move that the report be adopted.
I've noted the request for declaration from parties. I'll now give them the opportunity to make their declarations. The DA.
Chair, I rise for the last time as a member of South Africa's 5th Democratic Parliament to reject the budget review and recommendation report for the Department of Energy. This, Chair, is a department that is under siege by the forces of state capture, from the sacking of 2 energy ministers in less than a year to the appointment of South Africa's chief spook to drive the nuclear agenda of Vladimir Putin, at the cost of our national sovereignty and at the expense of every single South African. This, Chair, is also the department that has willfully sold off our nation's strategic fuel stocks in order to enrich the politically connected at the expense of the many. This is the department, Chair, that has failed to substantively act on a single recommendation of the Energy Portfolio Committee in any 3 of the last financial years. Therefore, while we in the DA are not opposed to the recommendations contained in this report, and while we wish to thank the Chairman and the committee for the open and inclusive manner in which this report was compiled, we have very little faith that the spook in chief, the Honourable Minister Mhlobo, has any intention of implementing any corrective actions called for by the committee, and therefore, Chair, we refuse to endorse a report that will simply be ignored by the Minister and this department, who are singularly obsessed with delivering the unaffordable and totally disastrous nuclear deal. As such, the DA will not support this report. I thank you.
The EFF.
The Economic Freedom Fighters reject the Portfolio Committee of Energy Budget Review and Recommendation. And we do so for the following main reasons. In September 2017, when the EFF asked Minister if ANC cronies and their families members benefited from sale of 5 billion worth of South Africa's strategic fuel stock, oil worth billions in rands, former Minister Jumat Peterson arrogantly dismissed the questions as gossip. Instead, she claimed it was stock rotation and not sale. In May 2017, former Minister Kubai confirmed that, in fact, the other former Minister, Jumat Peterson, lied to Parliament, and the crude oil was sold for a fraction of its value, making other people billionaires overnight. Now, with Minister Kubai reshuffled, all that is left is confusion and uncertainty of the fuel stock reserve that no one seems to be taking responsibility, and the country remained in ICU when it comes to fuel reserves, unable to replace the stolen fuel reserves. Then there is the nuclear deal that Mr. Zuma insists is going ahead. Government is building it, and we need it as a country. His obsession with the nuclear build project has led to changes of ministers twice within less than a year. Because Mr. Zuma has already accepted money in return for awarding the nuclear tender to the Russians, for him, this is do or die. And he is willing to die with the nation. He is willing to collapse the country. And he has appointed the right minister to make
Order,
that happen.
Honorable Member, your time is up. I'm
We must
sorry.
call him Minister
The
of Nuclear
IFF.
Energy, Mr. Mahlobo. The EFF reject.
IFP.
Thank you, Chair. There seems to be no clear understanding of the roles, responsibilities, and the authority of the minister or the various boards of this department's entities. In the real world, ESCOM should be a major net contributor to the fiscus rather than a leech sucking away on the nation's lifeblood. Every day in the media, we see and hear of corruption at this state-owned company, forced contractor payouts, dubious coal tenders, allegations of state capture contracts, and so much more that ESCOM has become an embarrassment to the state and the country. The move towards a more sustainable energy future cannot happen unless energy efficiency and reductions in electricity demand are realized. What is not proper examined, though, are the economic consequences of overstating projected demand. With the benefit of hindsight, the decision to build two of the largest coal-fired generators in the world now looks decidedly ill-considered. The cost of Medupi and Kusile, if ever completed, would now exceed 240 billion. Long-term commitments to large inflexible technologies such as coal and nuclear mean the country loses the ability to benefit from rapidly falling cost and technology improvements in renewables and electricity storage. The Department of Energy, mostly through their apathy towards self-enrichment, has been the primary cause of stunted growth and increased unemployment in South Africa. Corruption has become a way of doing business in this country, and more so in ESCOM and the DOE. We cannot accept this budget vote. Thank you.
NFP.
House Chair, the mandate of the department is primarily to formulate energy policies, regulatory frameworks, and legislation, and then to oversee their implementation so as to ensure energy security. In execution of this mandate, the department is required to promote environmental friendly energy carriers and secure access to affordable and reliable energy for all South Africans. To execute its mandate, the department was allocated 7.5 billion for the 2016-2017 financial year. By the end of March 2017, the department had spent a total amount of 7.5 billion, or 99.5% of the allocated budget, which is commendable. However, the department had 77 planned annual performance targets for the 2016-17 financial year, yet only 33 or 42% of these targets were achieved. Chairperson, if ever there is a case to be made out for consequence management, this dismal result is it. It is frightening to think that a department which cannot even achieve small, measurable and manageable performance targets can be entrusted with a huge undertaking such as President Zuma's forced Russian nuclear deal worth trillions of rands. The NFP also notes that for the first time since its establishment, the department received a qualified audit opinion, and this is the result of irregular expenditure of 98 million and marked for procurement of new building program IT system. Chairperson, this preoccupation with nuclear energy is unwarranted and unnecessary. The department itself admits that—
Honorable Member, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. The ANC.
Thanks, Chairperson. The African National Congress supports the budgetary review and recommendation report of the Department of Energy. It is our considered view that the portfolio committee of it is the considered view of the portfolio committee of energy that the portfolio of energy has been performing well over the last few years. We have expressed concern that in the last financial year, the department has received a qualified audit opinion. And we have expressed a very deep concern with regard to this setback as a portfolio committee. We do note that an increasing number of the entities in the portfolio are improving their audit outcomes. So this development of the Department of Energy receiving a qualified audit is a serious setback. In the light of these challenges, in the following week, we will have a meeting as the portfolio committee to look at the key questions in the portfolio, such as the new build program, the strategic fuel fund and the investigation with regard to that, and to look at the issues regarding to the price of energy, especially the price of electricity. These matters will receive urgent attention, and we do have confidence that the Department of Energy will be able to address these challenges that we are facing. And because of this, we want to support the report as the African National Congress, and would like to thank those members of the portfolio committee who supported the report.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your
Thanks very
time
much.
is up. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Chair, would you note the objection of the IFP?
Objection of the IFP is noted.
Chair, would you note the objection of the DA?
Objection of the DA noted.
The EFF object.
Objection of the EFF is also noted. The report is adopted. Thank you very much. I'll now ask the Secretary to read the 11th order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries.
I now recognize the Honorable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
I move that the report be adopted.
I've noted the motion as tabled. However, there are declarations that have been requested by parties. I now recognize the DA.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is constantly underfunded. It is, in fact, technically bankrupt this year. One of the reasons why it is not receiving more funds is that this department is failing to monitor and evaluate its impact on what is happening in farms. This department is responsible for food security, and it is also shocking to note that currently 14 million South Africans is food insecure. It shows that the department is not doing what it's supposed to do. Most of the funds of this department is going to provinces via funding for grant funding. It is here where the pup literally falls on the ground. I have seen myself and I've visited areas where the department has spent 1.4 million rand on 1 kilometers of fencing. That fence is supposed to cost 16,000 rand, and it cost the department 1.4 million rand. It's no wonder that the department is not doing what it is supposed to do. We have also heard reports that in the Free State, 30 million rands that was supposed to go towards farmers for the Vrede Dairy Farm was spent on the Gupta wedding, and there are facts to state that. This is not the last of the Vrede Dairy Farm. Just this weekend, we were informed that 6 Land Rovers were found in a shack in the Free State, again Vrede, funnily enough, that was supposed to be agricultural equipment that's supposed to go towards farmers. It's no wonder that this department cannot show improvement regarding food security. This year also, the department has not had funding to deal with the bird flu or the drought. We have already seen a drop of 84,000 jobs in the first half of this year, and this will just increase as we are proceeding this year.
Your time is up. Thank you. The EFF.
Thank you, Chair. The EFF rejects this budgetary review and recommendations report for the following reasons.
Just like this ANC government, this department never misses an opportunity to show where their loyalties lie. The Marine Living Resources Act 18 of 1998 excluded small-scale and artisanal fishers who catch and sell fish to sustain their livelihoods, all 600,000 of them and their families. Furthermore, it also excluded those involved in post-harvesting and other activities like bait preparation, cleaning, processing, and marketing. In 2002, small-scale fishers gathered at the World Summit on Sustainable Development to discuss fishing policy. This triggered a civil society process to address small-scale fishing in South Africa. The Equality Court then ruled that the Marine Living Resources Act should be amended to recognize the rights of small-scale fishing communities in 2013. The small-scale fisheries policy introduced by DAF was meant to recognize the rights of the small-scale fishing community. DAF allocated long-term fishing rights to 18 large and medium-sized commercial operators in the fishing industry. This constrained the rights promised in the subsequent small-scale fisheries policy, which creates more uncertainty about the allocations to small-scale fishing communities. The implementation of this policy is dependent on the cooperative model, which presupposes that members of such cooperatives have the necessary business and management skills, literacy skills, access to business capital, and social cohesion to make a collective business effort of this nature work in the practical sense. Fishing communities, just like rural communities, are of the most marginalized sections of our country. Socioeconomically, thus it is unfair to expect that they are empowered with the tools required to run with a cooperative model. This department replicates this devious strategy in agriculture and forestry as well, knowing that there is no way our people will ever derive benefit from any of these policies.
Your time is up.
We therefore reject this
Honourable
ANC
member of the
government's...
IFP, you can take the podium.
Thank you, Chair. I read these remarks on behalf of my colleague, the Honourable Nkosi Sebikulu. Chairperson, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries mandate is to lead, support and promote agriculture, forestry and fishery growth. It's no secret that our country is faced with high food prices because of low food production. We now import unsafe GMO maize in order to meet the demand. Our country, which was once an exporter of maize, as we produce the staple food in abundance, is now in need of assistance. There are two main reasons for our failures: change of weather patterns leading to drought and vast agricultural land or farms that are allowing fallow. Some farmers with the required expertise have sold their farms under the program of land reform, and those who acquire farms did not have the required skills to work the farms. The government approach to food security and fighting poverty and hunger requires coordinated efforts. For this to successfully occur, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries and Rural Development and Land Reform must stop working in silos. The One Home, One Garden project has not assisted much, as well as One Home, One Hectare, which now achieve much in getting poor citizens out of poverty. The IFP supports this report.
Thank you. The NFP.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo.
Ngiyabonga nami.
The mandate of the department is ultimately to ensure our country's food security, to drive resource growth and management through policies in this sector, and to contribute to inclusive and sustainable rural growth and development. To execute its mandate, the department was allocated 6.5 billion for financial year 2016-2017, a slight increase from 6.4 billion that was allocated to the department in 2015-2016. By the end of March 2017, the department has spent a total amount of 6.49 billion, or 99.6% of the allocated budget. In total, the department's under expenditure is 24 million during the 2016-2017 financial year. This is indeed regrettable if we consider that the department underspent by 8 million in the previous financial year. The NFP also notes that the department incurred irregular expenditure of 790,000 and disappointingly, recorded a significantly increased fruitless and wasteful expenditure to the total amount of 379,000 in comparison with 1,400 in the previous financial year. The NFP believes that it is high time that consequence management be applied in the department to address this problem. The report contains several important observations and well-considered recommendations which we support. In particular, NFP urges department to give due consideration to the recommendations addressing the problems of surrounding senior management, the delay in finalizing key policies, and the implementation of the plan to fund arrangements for Operation Icasa for agriculture, land reform, and rural development. We are of the opinion that our ocean economy will play an increasing role in the food security.
Thank you.
We, however, support the budget.
UDM.
The report.
Whereas Section 153 of the Constitution states thus, a municipality must give priority and promote economic development and participation in national development programs. And whereas the NDP recognizes that agriculture is the primary economic activity in rural areas, and whereas this department is mandated to lead and promote agriculture and embrace economic growth and development, yet Treasury, under the Zuma administration, issued Circular number 58 in December 2012, prohibiting local government from promoting agriculture as an economic driver. Consequently, rural municipalities are hamstrung as they are inhibited by this prohibiting Treasury instrument. Poverty reigns in rural areas. Despite the existence of large tracts of land, the UDM appeals for the withdrawal of this unconstitutional circular. Currently, only 2.3 million households participate in agriculture. We seriously appreciate the honest attempts by the department to come up with a policy that will result in more communities having fishing rights, especially in the Western Cape, where some families have been fishing for commercial purposes for decades to the exclusion of poor communities. Today, small-scale fisheries are recognized and have access to marine resources. As we speak, over 7 million people, an increase from 2016, are not secure for food. Standing levels in the country are worsening from 23% in 2005 to 27% in 2016. It is for this reason that the UDM urges government to allocate more resources to this department. A starving nation is vulnerable to all sorts of manipulative tendencies in the guise of assistance from other countries. Our South Africa will be no exception. Lack of a coordinated plan to address the systematic challenge of food security is evidenced by the poor to non-existent funding for agricultural colleges. In closing, the under-expenditure of a whopping 24 million is tantamount to genocide.
Thank you. The ANC. ANC.
Angibonge Mqinisihlalo. Honorable Chairperson, it is important to reiterate the ANC's commitment and prioritization of agriculture and transformation and rural development in government. Indeed, we had previously stated that agriculture and agro-processing are vital for increased contribution to the GDP, as well as job creation. They are major contributors to the rural economy. Thanks. Honorable Chair, after the economy's recovery from recession, the agriculture, forest and fishing sector showed the highest growth per sector in the economy with a 21.2% increase in the first half of 2017. The increased production of field crops as well as horticulture products such as vegetables has ensured that we emerge from the recent drought. Thus, the 33.6% yielded increase. Chair, this is good news for our country compared to 2016. In 2017 alone, we can expect 16.7 million tons of maize and a 77% increase in soybeans production. Honorable Chair, on the downside of things, commodities such as the wheat production is expected to decline by 20% due to the continued drought in the Western Cape. and poverty prices to rise due to the avian flu outbreaks in June 2017. However, Chair, growth in the sector is expected to be sustained throughout the year. In conclusion, Chair, despite many challenges among other areas, the department has managed to improve on budget spending. And to top it all, the Auditor General reported that there had
Honourable
been an
Member, I'm
improvement
sorry,
which
your time is up.
respected in addressing fraud and consequence management. by
Honourable
the
Member,
DWAS.
your time
The
is
ANC supports the report. I thank you.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. Now
EFF object.
we've noted the objections of the EFF. We now move to the order, honourable members. If you can really be good, you know what? You can have dinner early. You can have birthday parties, those who have got birthday parties, early, and a glass of champagne. Even if champagne comes from Paris, you can still enjoy it, though we lost the bid. Now we move to motions without notice. We now come to motions without notice. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion without notice?
Yes, Honorable Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with shock the death of a bodyguard of the Msunduzi Municipality Speaker, Mhlabunzima Bruce Mngoma, who was shot dead on Wednesday, the 8th November 2017. Understands that the 30-year-old Mngoma was traveling in a municipal vehicle in Kaluza near Pietermaritzburg when multiple gunshots were fired at him. The ANC recalls that Mngoma, who survived an assassination attempt about eight months ago, was taken on a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead upon arrival. The ANC believes that the motive for the killing is not clear, but investigation is continuing. And the ANC conveys heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Bruce Mngoma. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. The DA?
Thank you. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that Ans Botha was recently named 2017 Coach of the Year by the International Association of Athletics Federation. Also notes that Tani Ans, as she's affectionately known, as the coach of South Africa's 400-meter world record holder, Olympic champion, and world champion Wade van der Kerk, acknowledges Wade van der Kerk's countless achievements under her watch, including 2 400-meter world championship wins, a 400-meter Olympic gold medal, a 400-meter world record, a 200-meter IAAF World Championship silver medal, and smashing Usain Bolt's 300-meter world record this year. Also acknowledges that Van der Kerk is in line for the 2017 IAAF World Athlete of the Year award. Further acknowledges the role of Tani Ans in the historic victories and achievements. Recalls that Tani Ans was also named the South African Coach of the Year in 2016. Congratulates her on this remarkable achievement.
Thank you. Before you stand up, now you can. I'm sorry, we're trying to sort out the time issue. There was a glitch. Honorable Mkalipi.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House note that on this day in 1884, the infamous Berlin Conference began, a conference where imperialist European powers purposefully and ruthlessly conspired to divide Africa, territories and resources. Acknowledge that while African territories had been colonialized previously, with the Berlin Conference marked the crude formalization of the colonialism in Africa. Further acknowledge that dividing of Africa into various colonies served no other purpose than to oppress its people and exploit its resources. The legacy of this conference is seen throughout Africa today. Demarcation lines drawn up in Berlin still act as borders dividing Africa, our economies and livelihoods. And still over a century later, the people of Africa do not own their resources. Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray in its relative opacity. So I move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objection. Agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with sadness the untimely and tragic passing of the Cape Peninsula University of Technology's head of residence and ANC activist Siyabulela Twalani on Saturday, the 5th November 2017. Understands that Sia, as he was affectionately known, was shot several times in his vehicle on Saturday afternoon after dropping off a friend at his house and was declared dead on the scene. The ANC recalls that nothing was taken from his car after the fatal shooting. The ANC believes that Siyabulela's death is a great loss to his family, CPUT Khayelitsha, Community and Western Cape ANC Alliance, and the ANC conveys its heartfelt condolences to the family of Sia, Twalani, CPUT, and colleagues. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections. Agreed to. IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Nkada Freedom Party, I hereby move without notice that the House recognizes World Diabetes Day, observed on November 14th each year, which is a campaign focused on spreading awareness about a condition which affects an estimated 371 million people globally. 2, acknowledges the campaign this year seeks to, and I quote, promote the importance of affordable and equitable access for all women at risk or living with diabetes to the essential diabetes medicines and technologies, self-management and education and information they require to achieve optimal diabetes outcomes and strengthen their capacity to prevent type 2 diabetes, close quote. Further acknowledges that individuals with excessive weight are at a greater risk of falling prey to lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, and therefore, besides eating healthy, regular physical activity is of the utmost importance to beat obesity and avoid risk of developing lifestyle diseases, including diabetes, and finally, calls on health authorities nationwide to make certain that they spread awareness of the dangers of the silent killers such as these. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections. Agreed to. NFP.
Thank you, House Chair. On behalf of the NFP, I move without notice that this House take note that Durban businesswoman Ms. Vino Kavenda, who is the Managing Director of LA Engineers, is this year's recipient of International Women's Entrepreneurial Challenge Foundation Award. Also notes that the IWEC Foundation is a New York-based non-profit organization which connects a global network of successful women business owners. Further notes that Ms. Kavenda was nominated for supporting sustainable social development and upliftment with a particular focus on education in the science and engineering field. Finally notes that Ms. Kavenda, who won this title of National Women's in Business Champion at the 2016 South African Small Business Award, is also well known for her charitable endeavors in KwaZulu-Natal and a champion of reducing crime by promoting morality in communities and in the country. Wherefore, we call upon this House to congratulate Ms. Kavenda on winning the prestigious peer-based award and to encourage her to continue with her tireless efforts to make a social difference through her professional and personal life. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections. Agreed to. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows the Armanas Pienas, Assistant Manager at the case necessary in Vredendal, has been named the winner of the 2017 Western Cape Prestige Agri-Worker Awards. Recalls that the 56-year-old Pienas was given the accolade at a ceremony held at the Nederberg Wine Estate in Paarl on 4th November 2017. Understands the competition is co-sponsored by the Western Cape Department of Agriculture and ShopRite. Acknowledges that the agri-workers make such an important contribution to the country's economy and are contributing in producing fresh, quality products for sale in supermarkets. Believes that award will help him to fulfill his dream of finding solutions to the difficult economic circumstances facing employees, and congratulates Bienas on winning such a prestigious award. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections. This is a motion read by the ANC, obviously congratulating a South African. UDM.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I move without notice on behalf of the UDM that the House notes that Ms. Nothandekile Ncamiso and Zikhona Makibeni were brutally murdered by a serial killer on Wednesday, the 1st of November in Alice, Raymond Mhlaba municipality in the Eastern Cape. Further notes that on Saturday, the 11th of November, the same serial killer severely injured Ms. Kona Krama, whilst on Sunday, the 12th of November, Ms. Thokozile Dube was brutally murdered at work whilst guarding the offices of the Department of Social Development in Alice. Acknowledges that all these gruesome and senseless fatal attacks meted against the most vulnerable and powerless in society were reported to the South African Police Services. Excuse me, gentlemen, excuse me, please.
Can you please proceed with your motion? Otherwise, the time will finish.
Further acknowledges that the community marched to the police station on Monday, the 13th of November, demanding speedy arrest of the suspects. Welcomes the reported establishment of the special task after the march. Commends the community of Alice and surrounding villages for reporting this crime to the police and not take the law into their hands. Conveys his condolences to the families of Ncamiso, Makibeni, and Dube whilst wishing Ms. Krama speedy recovery. Calls on SAPS to work tirelessly for an immediate arrest of the alleged criminal so that he can face the full might of the law and save many other innocent women from this cruelty. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Can I ask the NA table to please sort out the time? FF plus. DA.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House recognizes 6 South African women who won $3,000 at the 2017 Tech Women Mentorship Program hosted in Silicon Valley for their innovation, Kasi Maths. That Kasi Maths aims to help students in low-income areas develop mathematical skills, confidence, and enjoyment, to pass mathematics at matric level and to take up STEM courses at tertiary level. Notes, Danai Nando, Emily Partha, Chieza Mguni, Ridwana Khan, Fanelwa Ajayi, and Lindiwe Matlali were chosen from 4,000 applicants. You can see their beautiful faces on Facebook, Kasi Maths. Notes that Tech Women aims to empower, connect, and support the next generation of women leaders in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That they worked in leading tech companies like Google and LinkedIn. That Kasi Maths was selected by a high-profile panel based on potential for impact, sustainability, and scalability. Congratulates them on their tremendous patriotic achievement, thanks them for their hard work and innovation, encourages them to succeed and replicate their program throughout South Africa. Phambili abafazi base-Mzansi. I so move.
Phambili, EFF.
I rise on behalf of the EFF.
Sorry, one moment of it. If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Indeed, I was inspired by Viva, Makoskaza Semzansi, Viva, and Phambili. EFF.
I rise on behalf of the EFF that the House note the judgment by the North Gauteng High Court allowing mining companies United in Action, Women from Mining Communities, and Environmental Justice Community Network of South Africa to join the application of the Chamber of Mines to review the mining charter. Further note that these 3 organizations had to go to court because the Chamber of Mines and government refused to allow them to join its application against the Department of Mineral Resources. Acknowledge that there were Chamber of Mines that there were term of months to succeed in their refusal, the battle over the mining charter would have been between the white monopoly capital and the Zuptas. Further, acknowledge that with these organizations joining the review process, the interest of mining communities, women in mining communities and environment will now be considered, not just two factions of capital. Congratulate those organizations in their victory and encourage them in their review of their mining charter. This is what the EFF has declared, that we need to have different forms of ownership which empowers our own community, cooperative, and workers. I so move.
If there are
The
no
ANC
objections,
object.
there's an objection, and therefore the motion will be converted to a notice of motion. ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes with shock the death of Ibrahim Phillips, who was killed while he was withdrawing his pension money at a fuel station in Mitchell's Plain on the 7th November 2017. Recalls that the 64-year-old popular elderly man died on the scene at the Total Garage in Beacon Valley. Recalls that the pensioner, who enjoyed walking around Mitchell's Plain, was known for giving cheap haircuts to both men and women. The ANC understands that 3 suspects were arrested in connection with Phillips' murder. The ANC calls upon the officials to investigate the case thoroughly and ensure that the perpetrators face the full might of the law. And the ANC conveys condolences to the family of Ibrahim Phillips. I so move.
I now, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. COPE, ACDP, ANC.
Thanks, House Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates former Metro FM radio personality and singer Unathi Msangana for being named South African Region Brand Ambassador for Africa's new top-level internet domain, .Africa. Notes that the domain was launched in April at the headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Further notes that its aim is to bring the continent together as an internet community under one roof for the promotion of e-commerce, technology, and infrastructure. Believes that the new domain will offer an opportunity to individuals, government, and companies in Africa to form a relationship with it and with one another. Further believes that it will act as an online platform where businesses can ensure their products, services, and information reach a broader audience in Africa. Also believes that Unathi, with her immense experience, skills, and personality, will assist a great deal in ensuring that the internet domain to achieve its objectives, and wishes her success in her new position of responsibility. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. AIC, Ahang SA, ANC.
Thanks, House Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House notes that the Office of Health Standards Compliance appointed Dr. Sipiwe Mdaweni as its new CEO as of October 2017. Further notes that Dr. Sipiwe Mdaweni's career and leadership journey had permeated and manifested itself in a number of entities she worked for. Recalls that her previous roles and positions include, among others, Deputy Director General of the District Health Service in KwaZulu-Natal. Further recalls that she was also the Department of Health Chief Director for Strategic Health Programs in the Provincial Department of Health and Chief of Party for the USAID TB program. Acknowledges her professional accomplishments, which included notable management of the overall implementation of the HIV and TB child and maternal health programs in the Provincial Department of Health. Believes that she brings a wealth of experience from public health policy and program implementation from several African countries she supported. Also believes that commendable knowledge in public health care would contribute towards the OHSC accomplishing its mandate in ensuring quality and safety in both public and private healthcare establishments in South Africa. And
Honorable
congratulations,
member, your time is up.
Congratulations, Dr. Ndaweni. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, I put to.
EFF objects.
Objection has been noted, and therefore the motion will be converted to a notice of motion. APC, PAC, DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House, one, notes the long-awaited release of veteran investigative journalist Jacques Pauw's book entitled The President's Keepers, and which the Deputy Speaker was spotted reading on a recent international flight. Two, further notes that the book contains damning allegations about President Zuma and certain state institutions. Three, recognizes the bravery of Pauw to forge ahead with the writing and release of his book, putting his own life at great risk in the pursuit of exposing the truth. Four, condemns the attempt by the State Security Agency to stifle his voice as well as the sale of the book. Five, recalls former Minister Nzimande's plea to South Africans to please buy and read the book. And six, thanks Mr. Pauw for his selfless contribution in the fight against corruption, nepotism, and state capture.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
Honorable Chairperson, the ANC object the motion. Thanks.
Order. Order. Since there are objections, the motion will be converted to a notice of motion. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates Durban for being officially granted the prestigious designation UNESCO Cities of Literature. Notes that UNESCO Cities of Literature was created in 2004 to promote cooperation with and among cities that had identified creativity as a strategic factor for sustainable urban development. Also note that 180 cities which currently make up this network working together towards a common objective of placing creativity and cultural industries at the heart of their development plans. Recognizes that the KwaZulu-Natal coastal city is the first African city to have received UNESCO Cities of Literature. Believes that as UNESCO Cities of Literature, Durban commits to build a welcoming and cooperative network that reflects the diversity and richness of the world's languages and literatures. Further believes that the achievement was not just for Durban, but was an achievement for the country and continent as a whole. And thanking Durban for flying the South African flag high in international arena, and wishes her more success in her endeavor to promote literature and creative arts and tourism and encouragement of dialogue between cities.
Honorable member, your time is up. If there are no objections, I put the motion. EFF objects and
KZN is the home of corruption and they probably got that by corrupt
honorable
means.
member. Honorable members, we had agreed that if you object, you just object. You don't have to give us the reasons why you are objecting to a motion. The motion will therefore be converted to a notice of motion. We now move to the next item on our agenda, which is the member statements.
Chairperson?
Yes, honorable member.
Chairperson, we'd like to highlight the fact that once again there are only 3 members of the executive here to answer member statements. Out of 35, member statements are used by members of parliament to raise issues from their constituencies. It's people's business, and the executive are clearly not interested in people's business. And Chair, it's high time, and we reiterate this every week, that the people's business should be at the top of the business of parliament and not at the bottom when there's no interest from the executive. And we are appealing to the ANC and their whips that we change the rules of Parliament and put motions of notice and member statement back at the top where they belong. Thank you.
Order, Honorable Member, I appreciate your note. It's the same point that was raised by your Chief Whip yesterday, and I think you have been raising this matter. Clearly, the Rules Committee is chaired by Honorable Mdagane, and I'm sure members can table that as a request. Honorable Kubai.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I need to bring to the House, Chair, in light of the work that the executive is doing, there has been commitment from the executive to be able to see to fulfillment of the work in the legislature. Hence, the executive has introduced a roster for all of us to make sure that there are members in the House to be able to respond to that. So we are definitely here to respond, and equally, House Chair, to note that there are members of the executive who are in Botswana for other business. So we are doing our best to make sure that there's a roster of members to be here to take statements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Order, honorable members.
Chairperson.
Honorable Waters, I have noted your issue. That's why I said a matter can be formally tabled if it's in respect of the question you raised on the Rules Committee.
Yes. Chair, I hear what the Honourable Minister is saying, but the fact is having less than 10% of a cabinet answering member statements is not good enough. Maybe for the ANC, 10% is a pass mark, but not for the Democratic Alliance. We want to see the majority of the cabinet ministers here answering members' statements.
Order. Honourable members. Honourable Khadebe, can you take your seat? As I indicated earlier, I said, honorable member, there is nobody whose German card's name in this assembly. I indicated that I've noted the issue you are raising. It's an issue that Honorable Steenhuisen raised yesterday and is an issue for the rules. So I was just requesting that the DA or any other party can formally table that matter for the changing of the program so that the Rules Committee deal with it. And unfortunately, until that committee handles that matter, there's very little we can all do about it. Honorable Kubai was just reflecting from the executive side what the decision has been. It may not be satisfactory to the legislature, but I think it is important that we've had her response on how in the executive they are trying to manage this issue. And I'll really appeal that let's not get into that debate. Let's proceed with our member statement, and the matters will be addressed appropriately where they need to be addressed. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Yes.
Yes, honorable member.
Thanks, House Chair. 2 farmers in court for assaulting 9-year-old black girl. The African National Congress is concerned by the perpetual racial incidents in the country. We have always been saying these incidents can serve.
Order, Chair.
Order. What's the point of order, honorable member?
No, but the member is speaking on a mic. He can't be making a noise like this.
Order, honorable member.
He's a mic.
Order. Honorable member, can you please take your seat? Can you proceed, honorable member?
We have always been saying these incidents can serve only to undermine South Africa's democratic project and deepen racial conflict. A case of 2 more farmers, Johannes Sportgifter and Hendrik Dumas, who appeared in Bronkhorstspruit Court yesterday for allegedly assaulting a 9-year-old black girl on September 9 is an example of this. It is alleged that the girl with her friends were walking their dogs on September 9. The dog ran into
Order, honorable members.
And the girls followed it, only to be chased
Honorable
by
Paulson.
the 2 accused. The other 3 girls were able to run away, but the other one was caught up, tied to a tree, assaulted, and had a firearm pointed at her while some farm workers watched. As the ANC, we believe all the racial incidents. The ANC condemns all offenses against the poor in the strongest term and call for a proper sentencing of the 2 accused if found guilty. The law must be seen to uphold the rights of the poorest and most vulnerable South Africans. We commend the young lady for her courage in reporting this matter. The ANC calls for the farm communities, farmers and workers black and white to oppose all this discrimination. Farmers and farm workers should be an example to all of us of non-racism and dignity as people of work closely together. As ANC, the law must take its course. That's what we say.
Thank you. Order. Order. Honorable members, can we please not drown any other person? Secondly, in this house, we have tried to help one another, not to use gestures and language that might seem to actually infer on one another. Thirdly, I would want us to appreciate that English is not a mother tongue for all of us. So when people do make mistake on the lingo, I think we need to be accommodative. So I just think it's important that we do so. I have heard some noises in the way in which when some people break the grammar, then there are some innuendos, that are said, and I think we need to move away from that. So I would really ask us, whether it's English, Afrikaans, or Zulu, none of us understand those languages the same way. So it's important that we accommodate one another as we build a nation. The DA. Over to you.
Thank you, House Chair, and it's good to have you back in the chair.
Order. Honorable members. No German cards in this house, and you other members, Honorable Khadebe, you are out of order. Order, honorable members, you don't need to descend to those levels as these honorable members. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, House Chair. The nursery rhyme London Bridge is Falling Down was written 400 years ago. It was all about the depredation of London Bridge and what the citizens should do to stop the decay. Well, fast forward 4 centuries to today, and the citizens of Johannesburg find themselves literally living on the edge as the infrastructure crumbles beneath their feet after years of indefensible neglect by ANC governments in Johannesburg under the leadership of some sitting in this house today. Johannesburg's infrastructure backlog now stands at 170 billion rand, almost 4 times the annual budget of the city. The Joburg Roads Agency backlog is 85.5 billion rand. The 2017 Roads Condition Index shows a 25% deterioration in road surfaces. 1/4 of the city's transformers are past their useful life, with no spare parts available for this redundant infrastructure. Johannesburg Water has an infrastructure renewal backlog of 5.8 billion rand, with more than 45,000 water leaks reported in the city. Another 974 million is needed for sewerage. And Joburg's bridges are falling down. 707 out of 902 are classified as being in poor or very poor condition, and 6.5 billion is needed to fix this. As we peel away layers of corruption and neglect by previous ANC governments, the enormity of the problem becomes apparent.
Honourable member, your time is up.
South Africa's premier city has been left to rot.
Ngibonga sihlalo. Ngisukuma egameni le-economic freedom fighter ezophatha njalo ngo-2019. Ngithi ake sikhulume ngalezi inkinga ezikhungethe abantu basemakhaya. Ngenxa yenkinga yokuthi amaphoyisa kude. Umphakathi wasemakhaya usenkingeni yamasela antshontsha imfuyo. Besicela amaphoyisa ake asukume ikakhulukazi lapha yakwamaphumulo. Nasemsinga lapha ePhomoroyi bayaphela abantu bantshontshelwa impahla imfuyo yabo imbuzi inkomo. Kanjalo nogogo sisenkingeni ukuthi mabephuma ukuhola impesheni kunalaba bantu ababacathamelayo ezindlini bezobashaya bebafuna izimali. Besicela uhulumeni ka-ANC akalusukumele lolu daba ngoba inkinga enkulu laphayana ama-police station akude nomphakathi. And besingajabula kube khona amaphoyisa azohamba ehlenyuka. And kuneyimoto ezitholakalayo laphayana ukuthi izona ezihlangene namaphoyisa ebahamba bebamba inkunzi. Laphaya Njeleza Ward 7 ethempelini lakaShembe bagqekezile bathatha imali. Abahloniphi sebengena ngisho endlini yamakhosi.
Lungahloniphekile Khawula sesiphelile isikhathi sakho ANC.
Thank you.
Honorable Manana, there is one presiding officer who can monitor the time of members. Honorable Sposazwe.
Sorry,
thank you very much, House Chair.
What is the point of order, ma'am?
Ngiyabonga. Uyazi nginenkinga la. Kunama-bouncer la. Angazi kanti asebenza makunjani. Kunabantu laba violate umthetho.
Honorable
Umanana kethu kuphuma lana.
Honorable Khawula.
Adazi nimbeke isithi
Honorable
kumdonora.
Khawula, the matters have been dealt with that you are raising. Can we all be in order? Honorable Masang.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. The ANC notes with grave concern the unfolding political crisis in Zimbabwe, with the military alleged to have taken over all strategic sites. The ANC has deep historical relations with Zimbabwe, and our people's armies, the MK, ZIPRA, and ZANLA, fought together against colonial oppression. The two governments enjoy cordial bilateral relations since 1994. The ANC is calling for calm and constructive engagement among all stakeholders in Zimbabwe and further calls upon the SADC heads of state and government to monitor the situation and intervene when necessary. Thank you.
IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Last year, there was a service delivery protest at Umfolo's local municipality under King Cetshwayo district where business people, together with the community, complained mainly about service delivery or the lack thereof and corruption within the municipality. The municipality refuted the claims and retorted by saying that these people were merely driven by political motives. However, we know that there is a lot that is going on in this municipality. We have been hearing reports that there is no money available in this municipality, so much that workers might not even be paid on the 25th of this month. And that in order to pay employees, the municipality is dependent on whatever adjustment to the budget that will be paid by the Treasury this month. This municipality has also been organizing the Siyabonga Sangweni soccer tournament at exorbitant amounts, but this year they requested KZN provincial government to fund it for them at a cost of about 800,000, but still claimed from the municipality more than 2 million rand from the municipality through the Yandisa company that is friends to the ruling party. These allegations must be quickly investigated and correct measures be taken, as this may impact on service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. South Africa is a nation that is bleeding profusely. Despite our glorious constitution and our exemplary Bill of Rights, we witness huge criminal violations of our basic human rights daily. Human trafficking is on the rise, child kidnapping is prevalent, and the murder of children is tearing away at our social fabric daily. These abuses are happening all over the country. We've seen it again this past weekend when 2 primary school boys were abducted in Durban and their lifeless bodies found 2 and 3 days later, respectively. These boys were brutally murdered in cold blood, sending shockwaves through the community. The National Freedom Party wants to convey its condolences to the members of the bereaved family. When we are confronted with such horrors, we ask serious questions about enforcement of law, and we come to doubt the effectiveness of our criminal justice system. Yet, Chairperson, the crime and accompanying human rights abuses is not only a question of criminality. It is also an indication of a society which is shaken by socio-political instability. The National Freedom Party believes that the rampant crime is doing irreparable harm, not only to the psyche of our nation, but also to our economic stability. Investors and tourists alike are being chased away by crime, slowing economic growth and the deepening levels of poverty. Our call today is for all people of goodwill to work together with law enforcement agencies to curb the hurricane of crime sweeping through our country. Thank you.
ANC. Thank you, Chairperson. The African National Congress is concerned by the high rate of abalone smuggling in the country, especially in the Western Cape. The recent arrest of 5 people in possession of abalone and processing equipment worth about 3.5 million rand in Plenary, Cape Town, on Saturday, the 11th November 2017, is not a separate incident. In the past, we have seen cases of this nature, and despite the arrest, this problem persists. It is reported that in the early hours of that Saturday morning, members of the Provincial Tactical Response Team acted on information about the alleged abalone processing facility at a house in Plenary and acted swiftly. Upon their arrival at the address in Pelican Walk, Sunbird Park, they found abalone with an estimated street value of 3.5 million, which included the equipment used by the suspects. The African National Congress commends the South African police for acting swiftly and arresting the suspects. We hope the suspects will be punished to the letter of the law. I thank you.
Thank you, ACDP. ANC.
Thanks, Chairperson. The ANC believe fraud and corruption are broad social problem, prevent the public and public sector, and requiring the commitment and the citizen of all to eradicate them. We therefore applaud the arrest and the fraudulent employee of the Pegi Mlangeni district, Jabulani Soweto Gauteng, for the alleged sale of job, the subset of the National Laboratory in Mlangeni Hospital. The arrest happened. 3 members of the public arrived at the hospital looking for the accused, seeking for the refund of 5,000. The hospital immediately called the police, who arrested the suspect. The ANC welcomed the hospital unequivocal stance in the matter, distancing itself from such behavior, and furthermore, its unequivocal pronunciation of the state members who engage in such corruption and acting without the coding. The ANC commends the policy for the swift action in arresting the suspect and members of the community for alerting the hospital management. We make a clarion call for the South African citizen who, when approached for the job, exercise the money, the report to the law enforcement agency, and they call the 10-111 number. I thank you.
The DA.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. A report back to the Police Portfolio Committee on investigations by the Hawks since September into firearms stolen at 2 Western Cape police stations in August this year showed shockingly poor results so far. Out of 15 state-owned firearms stolen from the safe in the Community Service Center at Mitchell's Plain Police Station, only 2 firearms have been recovered. And out of 18 firearms stolen from the exhibit store at Belleville South Police Station, only 1 firearm has been recovered. While all 10 Hawks-led operations since September should have been intelligence-led operations, only 1 of them was explicitly supported by crime intelligence, and 7 of them yielded negative results. That is, no arrests or seizures. The DA can only conclude that the causes of this are inadequate or poor quality intelligence information and/or criminal suspects being tipped off through criminal collusion about imminent police operations. Indeed, the acting provincial head of the Hawks in the Western Cape, Brigadier Oliver, stated to the committee that there are, quote, corrupt cops in the environment who are connected to the gangs. It is clear that the Hawks will be continuously hobbled by crime intelligence in crisis as long as leadership instability and mismanagement in the division remains unresolved.
EFF.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. People of Metsimaholo in the Free State have experienced sewer blockages and drainage problems for over 10 years now. In Ward 10, Somersport, the sewer pipes are not being pumped. As a result, when they filled up, particularly during rainy seasons, they flood into a people's home. In Ward 1 and Ward 13, there's no sewer connection at all. As a result, people illegally connect for themselves, and because it has no pump stations, it always blocks. This has been the case for almost 14 years. In Ward 3, sewer pipes do not work properly as well and under-maintained. They too fill up, particularly during rainy season, and they flood into people's home. The FF wrote to the Minister of Water and Sanitation, and to this day, we have not received any response or acknowledge of the letter. While people in Metsimaholo continue to live like animals with blocked sewers and drainage problems, we call on to people of Metsimaholo to go all out in numbers on the 29th of November and to vote out ANC and to vote in EFF. Thank you.
ANC.
Thank you, Chair. The African National Congress is disappointed by yet another unfortunate incident where a Kati man in Northern Cape is facing a charge of murder and 3 counts of attempted murder after allegedly running over a group of young men with his buggy in what is believed to be a racial motivated attack. Community members last Monday packed the court alleged gallery to listen to the bail proceeding of Harry Kutsi, 38, following the incident that claimed the lives of 20-year-old El Cado crew and landed Ashrik Molino, 19, in the Harip Medic Clinic. Community members claimed that the incident was racial motivated and urged the court not to grant the accused bail. It is alleged that Kutsi deliberately drove into crew and Molino and 2 of their friends, Liam Cloti and Coven Younger, with his buggy on October 14, 2017. The African National Congress believes the demon of racism once again rears its ugly head. It brutalizes entire people, destroys persons, and injects into human society a foul air of tension, mutual antagonism, and hatred. It demeans and dehumanizes both victims and
I'm sorry,
practitioners.
Honorable Member, your time is up.
Okay.
Ahang SA. ANC.
Honorable
Order, Honorable Member.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you.
Ahang SA.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable members, here are 4 plagues of Zuma administration, which has further plunged our country into uncertain future. The collapse of law enforcement agencies, where gangsters are elevated at the expense of law-abiding civil servants. Gupta Duduzani economic transformation, masquerading as radical economic transformation. Unrivaled moral and ethical bankruptcy, and a zombie-like presidency, thanks to the Guptas. The legacy of this administration is betrayal and incompetency at its best. Honorable members, we are prisoners of bad governance. This administration is like a funeral procession with the president reading an obituary of the death of our democratic aspirations. 2019 is our final chance to push out the ANC and the corruptible. I thank you.
The ANC.
Thank you, Chair. Gauteng Health and Centralized Chronic Medicine Dispensing and Distribution Program. The African National Congress is committed to making a meaningful difference to the lives of people in terms of health. As the ANC, we will continue with our concerted effort to improve the delivery of quality health care in given to Gauteng residents. The distribution of medicines closer to patients is yielding positive results in the Gauteng province. More than 40,000 patients receive their chronic medication closer to their homes or places of work on a monthly basis. Among the recipients, the total of 41,015 patients belong to the centralized chronic medicine dispensation and distribution program, which is an initiative of government and the private sector to dispense the prescriptions and deliver them to pick-up points, private and public, closer to patients' homes and places of work. As at September 2017, a total of 239,866 parcels have been delivered through both public and private sector pharmacists in Gauteng. The ANC encourages patients to, on this program,
I'm
to
sorry,
collect.
Honorable Member, the time
Thank
is
you.
up. Thank you. The DA.
Thank you, Chair. Minister Des Van Rooyen's Back to Basic program lasted a whole 2 minutes. This has been highlighted in recent events at municipalities in Limpopo. Of particular concern is the Greater Letaba municipality, where 22 million rand of irregular expenditure has been recorded. Much of this is excessive diesel and fuel purchases, legal fees, and other very dubious deviations of supply chain management procedures. The minister must, however, explain how over 1 million was paid to a service provider's account by mistake. The money was for a councillor training event which was not held at that venue to which the money was paid. Despite regulations, this money has not been recovered either from the service provider or the CFO and director who authorized the payment. How was this possible? When the municipality advertised posts this last month, many residents collected application forms to apply for jobs on offer. The DA then started to receive evidence that the application forms ask that applicants advise what political party they belong to and what positions they hold. The residents of the municipality are now convinced, as are we, that cronyism remains rife and that available jobs are indeed only offered to those cadres who support the ANC. This is unconstitutional. The ANC must take responsibility for the crisis in municipal government.
I'm sorry,
today.
Honorable Member,
Thank you,
your
Chair.
time is up. ANC.
Angibonge sihlalo. The cause for celebration is 2 million rand surgery separates conjoined twins. The ANC will ensure that South Africans have access to comprehensive quality health service, irrespective of their socio-economic status. This is a given credence in this successful 2 million rand abdominal operations on conjoined twins at George Mukari Hospital in Harankuwa 20 days ago. We believe that this is a cause for celebration as the successful operation showed that public sector medicine is advanced and has skilled personnel to undertake such complex operation. It would have been difficult for the family concerned to afford the operation, estimated at 2 million rands, if it was undertaken at a private hospital, which would have costed the family money they would not have been able to pay. The ANC is therefore proud of what the George Mukari Hospital in Harankuwa has achieved and their intention to give their best despite all the challenges they are facing with. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That concludes member statements. Are there any ministerial responses? I've noted Honorable Kubai, Honorable Landes, Honorable Chikungwa, Home Affairs, Nkwinti. Honorable Kubai, over to you.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I think let me start with a statement by Honorable Member in terms of the intervention and the concerns raised around Zimbabwe, to say that indeed the President has issued a statement on behalf of SADC as the SADC Chair that indicates the concerns and the work that is being done. An envoy has been sent to Zimbabwe to go and assist and report back to the chairperson of SADC. That's the first one. I want to respond as well to the second matter that relates to infrastructure backlog in Johannesburg. House Chair, I want to indicate that Honorable Mackenzie, when he raises the issues, indeed there are challenges in terms of infrastructure backlog. But if we could work as well as the city, ensuring that the resources that are available in the city are able to do that. The witch hunt by the municipal mayor, instead of focusing on service delivery, if you look at Johannesburg today, they are being done. There are more potholes in Johannesburg than ever you've ever seen. Bins are not being collected. Yes, go to Soweto every day. Bins are not taken on time on the same day. It has never happened under the ANC government. You've never seen potholes as you see them today. The infrastructure is deteriorating under the leadership of DA in Johannesburg. Currently, we're speaking about the bankruptcy of, when DA took over Johannesburg, there was money. All the money now is being used for investigation, not for service delivery. Tell the mayor to disclose to the citizens in Johannesburg how the money has gone, how the city has gone to bankruptcy under the leadership of DA. This is what is happening in Johannesburg. So, Chair, the last one I want to respond to is what Mam Kaula has raised. Indeed, Mam Kaula, the issues of crime are a concern.
I'm sorry, Honorable Minister, your time is up.
Thank you.
Honorable Landes. Honorable Chukungwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to respond to the statement made by the ANC on the centralized chronic medication distribution program, to say that this indeed is a program that works. Patients are put on this after they are being assessed whether they are suitable candidates for the program. And also they are checked and monitored by doctors from time to time as to whether they are not developing side effects, and therefore it is indeed working. We welcome the program. It's not every patient with a chronic condition who is on the program, because others have serious complications, and those that are not put on the program, but it is indeed working. Coming to another statement on the conjoined twins that were separated at Prince Mkari Hospital. Indeed, our tertiary hospitals are doing the work that is done in advanced or developed countries. We compare very well with hospitals in London, hospitals in other countries. We are doing procedures such as this, including insemination, including whatever other procedures, and these are done in public hospitals. And I think we welcome this statement very much. And of course, we want to together with the family, celebrate the celebration of their twin and wish the twins a speedy recovery. Lastly, Madam Chair, just on the issue of crime, indeed, particularly in Pomeroy, there is a police station there. There is a police station in Tugela Ferry. However, the issue of stock theft units, they are far from the rural areas. And it's the issue that Umam Kaula Airezayo is indeed a problem, but it is receiving attention. And there are units that are doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chohan.
Chair, why you Minister Ependulu Mamkaula ngesingisi?
Order, Honorable Member.
No, it's a point of order. Mamkaula,
can you take a seat? Honorable Member. Honorable Member, can you take your seat? Order. Honorable Mkalipi. Honorable Mkalipi, there is simultaneous translation. So a member can use any language of the 11 languages of our country. Ikona into yokutolika mamukawula nomudlala ngathi nje uzwa kahle. Honorable Johan,
igama lika Minister Sindi.
Order.
Sindi sizulu leso. Akafunde ukukhuluma nabantu emakhaya ePhomoroyi.
Order. Honorable members, some of those issues you can discuss outside. Honorable Chohan.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. May I?
Order. Mam Kawul, Honorable Member, can we allow the Deputy Minister to respond to the statement?
Chairperson, when an honourable member tries to raise the very serious issue of crimes against children, it is very, very disappointing sitting here to see how that honourable member is heckled by certain members. It is highly disrespectful to the victims of these very serious crimes perpetrated by white farmers. I am not dialoguing with you, sir.
Order.
I am responding to a statement which you keep on raising we should be doing. It is very disrespectful, Chairperson, to the victims of these crimes who are the most vulnerable in our society. And if we are going to, as a society, put an end to these crimes against women and children, it behoves us as members to behave appropriately under the circumstances. Crimes against children in particular, I believe, can never be justified, and we shouldn't behave as if they can be. We should cultivate a culture of intolerance against any act of harm against the most vulnerable in our society, and not behave in the way that honourable members continue to behave even now.
Order. Honourable members, the same behavior that happened today with regards to a matter that relates to people who have either been affected by rape or any other crime happened yesterday. And I cautioned members, and I really think, as this parliament, as public representatives, no matter our difference, there is a time at which we must have a modicum of respect, even if not for ourselves, but for those people we represent and those that are affected. And I think it's a lesson for all of us. Really, I would appeal to all members. It happens on both sides and it's not right. Yesterday, I raised the same issue, and today the same behavior happened. And I think all of us as parties, and I'm sure in our caucuses, is a matter that we must really reflect upon. What are those issues that must bring us together as a nation, that even if we differ, we can show respect in how we deal with them? I think it's a lesson for all of us. Thank you, honourable members. This concludes ministerial statements. The last item on the order paper is notices of motion. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a notice of motion?
Yes. Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the strengthening of South Africa's working relations with other African states to take forward a regional industrialization agenda, ensuring that Africa becomes a manufacturing and industrial power. Thank you.
DA?
House Chair, I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the coup d'etat currently unfolding in neighbouring Zimbabwe. I so move.
EFF?
I rise on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House debate making one city the administrative and legislative capital of South Africa.
ANC?
I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates ways to engage the private financial sector in order to facilitate its transformation to ensure that it contributes to investment and developmental priorities of the country.
IFP?
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of Icasa from Party, I shall move at the next sitting of this House that the House debates recent crime stats that revealed a shocking increase in killings in Gauteng's major capital, Johannesburg. Thank you.
NFP,
Egameni le-NFP ngiyophamisa ukuthi le ndlu idingide udaba oseliqala ukuba lihlazo lapho sibona ongqongqoshe bengasakukhuthalele ukuza kule ndlu ukuzophendula imibuzo ethinta iminyango yabo nokuthi nabe khona ubone behla benyuka bengakhululekile engathi basaba ukhetho ngaphandle uma bezile ubona sebezela ekubeni imbiko yeminyango yabo iyadumaza futhi ilihlazo ngiyaphakamisa.
ANC.
Thanks, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the mechanism to deal with land invasion and in particular land earmarked for development. I so move.
UDM.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the UDM that the House in its next sitting debate the prospects of auditing qualifications of bureaucrats on an annual basis in the context of the great need to enhance efficiency and quality service delivery. I so move.
FF Plus. DA.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting in the House debates how our government's shenanigans is impacting on sports tourism and turns bidding costs into wasteful and fruitful expenditure.
EFF.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby rise on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House debate public representatives using public services. I so move.
ANC.
Thanks, Chair.
I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the development of strategies aimed at training young people in schools until they complete secondary schooling. Thank you.
COPE. ACDP. ANC.
Thanks, Chair. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that its next sitting, the House debates putting in place mechanism to make community services attractive, enjoyable, and meaningful to young graduates and society. I thank you.
AIC. Ahang SA. ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the acceleration of the provision of proper sanitation in the rural areas as well as informal settlement. Thank you.
APC. PAC. DA. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the impact of the constant fuel price increases on ordinary South Africans. Thank you.
ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debate the promotion of food security as a way to lessen our dependence on food imports. I thank you.
That concludes notices of motion and the business for the day. I didn't say the House is adjourned. I see people just standing up. Order, honorable members, the House is adjourned.